Lenovo's K3 Note is a mid-range smartphone with an affordable price tag. Although it makes a great first impression on paper, how well does it really fare in day-to-day use? This is Bailey Stein with Android Authority, and this is my full review of the Lenovo K3 Note. The K3 Note offers a relatively basic design with a somewhat boxy feel in the hand. The edges are easy to grip though, the matte plastic rear resists both fingerprints and scratches well, and the tactile feeling buttons are positioned perfectly for one-handed use. At 8mm and 150 grams, it's fair to say that the K3 Note is an average-sized smartphone. The back cover is easy to remove and lets you access the user-replaceable 3000 mAh battery, microSD card slot, and dual micro SIM slots. Unlike many smartphones, the K3 Note's micro USB port is located at the top of the device near the headphone jack. Whether you like this will depend on your personal preference, but I found myself preferring it since it actually makes it easier to charge the device while listening to music. Also, the rear speaker is located near the top on the back of the phone, which makes it easier to hold the phone without distorting the audio. With that said, it's undoubtedly still inferior to front-facing speakers. The three capacitive keys on the front of the K3 Note, menu, home, and back, sadly do not illuminate. Although some may be disappointed by this, there was never a time when I had trouble finding each button. In addition to a 5-megapixel front-facing camera, there's also a notification LED at the top right, which illuminates red for charging and green for missed calls. The 5.5-inch 1080p display on the K3 Note looks great and has good viewing angles. Color reproduction is accurate, and while the phone does have better sunlight readability than the Asus Zenfone 2, it's still lacking when compared to other devices like the Meizu M2 Note. It can be difficult to read while outdoors, but otherwise provides a great viewing experience. While it is coated in Dragon Trail protection, I did notice a few minor scratches on my unit after just a few days of use. Powered by the octa-core 64-bit MediaTek MT6752 processor, clocked at 1.7 GHz, the K3 Note is very powerful for the price. Although the benchmark scores are relatively high, the phone did lock up a few times during my testing. It's far from a major issue, but it can still be pretty annoying when watching a YouTube video or scrolling through a web page in Chrome. Luckily, the device would restore to its responsive state within about 5 to 10 seconds, but again, it can be kind of frustrating. There's also 2 GB of RAM for basic multitasking, as well as the Mali T760 GPU. The K3 Note was able to handle gaming very well, and I don't have any issues to report. With support for 802.11n Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth 4.1, the K3 Note has all of the connectivity options you'd expect. The Wi-Fi signal is very strong, and the GPS signal is also pretty good. It's actually providing more than double the range that I had with the new Mobile Z8, and I can get a reliable Wi-Fi connection with the K3 Note in areas where my Dell XPS 13 can't. Cellular network support will vary based on the model you purchase, although I was able to receive HSPA Plus on AT&T in the United States. Although there is single SIM support for 4G LTE, you won't be able to receive those speeds within the US regardless of the model. The speaker on the K3 Note is surprisingly good when it comes to clarity, but it could use a bump in volume. It's much better than the speaker on the Zenfone 2, and while it isn't as loud as the M2 Note speaker, it doesn't include nearly as much distortion. Backed by a 3000 mAh user-replaceable battery, the K3 Note is pretty much expected to provide excellent battery life. Fortunately, it delivers. I started my day at 7 AM with brightness set to 100% for most of the day and Wi-Fi on for about half. I watched about a half hour of YouTube videos, played a few games, and also ran a couple of benchmarking applications. The phone did call it a day slightly earlier than I did at around 10 PM, with just over 4 hours of screen-on time. I think the battery life is on par with the Meizu M2 Note, and you do have to remember that the K3 Note offers the option to swap out the battery if needed. In addition to that, Lenovo has also included a couple of power-saving modes for even better battery life. The 13-megapixel rear camera captured mostly nice-looking images, although there were times when it had trouble focusing. Images appear to be fairly sharp and detailed, and the dual LED flash is very bright. Low-light images taken without the flash didn't turn out so well as expected, but overall, I think it takes some very good pictures when you factor in the cost of the phone. Lenovo's camera app lets you change white balance and ISO as well as select specific scenes. It offers a bit more control than average, and I would say that it's definitely an improvement over MediaTek's camera app. The K3 Note runs Vibe UI 2.5 on top of Android 5.0 Lollipop out of the box. Vibe UI has matured quite a bit over the past year, but I still think that it could use a bit more polish. The general user interface is mediocre, and I'm far from a fan of the default system app icons. With that said, you can use Lenovo's built-in theme center to change the general look and feel of the software experience. It's fairly robust, although I do wish that we could see English text previews for different font types. Also, the stock launcher is missing an app drawer, the lock screen doesn't display your notifications, and there are just certain areas of Vibe UI that feel a tad unpolished. That doesn't mean the software experience is all bad, however. I actually prefer the notification shade over stock Androids, and I do appreciate the extra software features and gestures that Lenovo has added. There have been a few other reviews posted which criticize the phone for having annoying bloatware, but your experience will vary depending on who you purchase the phone from. The stock ROM does not include Google Apps, so many resellers are adding them before shipping the devices out. However, some of those resellers may also be adding some additional bloatware which may compromise the overall software experience. If you're looking to purchase this phone officially in India, you won't have to worry about this at all since Lenovo's stock ROM ships without the insane level of bloatware and also includes Google Apps. The moral of the story here is to do your own research before buying from a specific reseller, and be aware that you may have to flash a different ROM to get a more desirable software experience. The Lenovo K3 Note is available officially in India for 10,000 rupees and can be imported in the US for about $160. If you're not a fan of the golden yellow color, you can always pick up a white or black model instead. Also, if the single 16GB partition isn't enough, you can always expand the storage by using a microSD card, up to 64GB. The Lenovo K3 Note is one of the best smartphones available for under $200. With a good display, excellent performance, and a large battery to keep it going, the K3 Note gets the essentials right. However, the design could be considered too simplistic for some, the display offers poor sunlight readability, and the speaker could use a bump in volume. Those drawbacks are all relatively minor though when considering the phone's very competitive price point. I would say that it's a better value than the base model Asus Zenfone 2 if you can get LTE, and maybe even the Meizu M2 Note, depending on your preferences. Do keep in mind that the M2 Note shines more in design and display quality, while the K3 Note focuses more on performance and speaker quality. In conclusion, the K3 Note is yet another great option in the budget smartphone space. Thank you for watching this video, and please make sure to give it a thumbs up below if you enjoyed it. Also, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content, and feel free to leave a comment below. Finally, be sure to visit the Android Authority website for additional coverage, as we are your source for all things Android.